Hello, friends. It is wonderful to be here with you. I'm Rachel Archelaus, founder of the Intuitive Art Academy, and this is Carrie Roldan, your business BFF and yawner of truth, and so many amazing things. My life would be so much more boring without her. And hello, Guillaume. Thank you for being here. Thanks for everyone who's joining us today, whether live or on the replay. You all know that link will send you to the replay if you can't make it live. And we are talking about living fearlessly today. We're going to have just a random open conversation about this. Of course, we both have some things that we have on our mind that we want to share. But it's a big topic, and we welcome your input. Hi, Corinne. Feel free to put your questions or comments or resources in the chat. We'd love to have this be interactive with you. So hi, Carrie. How are you?
I love listening to the way you introduce me because it's almost never the same. I was totally I feel like the go-to is your business BFF, but today, yawner of truth. That is true. So I will take that. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about this topic because last week you guys saw that I was reading this book, those of you who are watching, which is called Thinking Body, Dancing Mind, Tao Sports for Extraordinary Performance in Athletics, Business, and Life. Oh, that's my dog. She randomly barks. At nothing, by the way. She barks at nothing. Like nothing is happening, and then she just barks at the wall. Or maybe it's not nothing, Rachel. Maybe she's seeing, who knows?
You just need to get me over there so I can see what your dog is seeing and let you know.
I know. I should have turned my computer around. This has nothing to, maybe this has a little to do with fear, but I just remembered something that happened to me last night, which actually terrified me. So let me finish my first thought, which is just to say that the chapter I read this morning was called Fear. And I did not even know that this is what we're going to be talking about today. But I do really like the way that it is addressed in this book. So I'll talk about that. So number one, I don't think you can live fearlessly. I think we all experience fear. So fearlessness, probably we need to talk about what that actually means to us, because it's silly to think that we will go our whole lives without ever experiencing fear. Come on. Number two, here's what happened to me that was terrifying and weird and wonderful. So, you know how there's a moment where you're awake, but still asleep, you're kind of in between. So last night I woke up, I went to bed really early, and I woke up right around midnight because my dog wanted out. And so I came downstairs and I let the dogs out, and then I had my alarm set for 4. And so instead of going back upstairs to my room, I came in here and slept on the couch because I didn't want to wake my husband up at 4. And anyways, so I'm laying on the couch and I'm sleeping, and I felt myself be I was cold. And then I was like, am I awake? Am I asleep? What's happening? And then it felt like someone was in here with me. And then I felt the weight of someone put a blanket on me. And I thought that it was my husband had come in and put a blanket on me. But then I kind of woke up and realized that, but when I felt the presence in the room, I felt scared. So I felt scared, and then I felt the blanket go on me, and then I wasn't scared anymore. And then I woke up, came out of that in-between space and realized that there was no one in here with me. And then I was scared again. And then I just rolled over and went back to bed. So because you are the knower of all things, what the hell was that?
Okay, so question. First of all, hi, Gina Maria. Thanks for coming. Was there a blanket, or was the blanket not real?
I did have a blanket on me, but that was already on me. So I felt like something be placed on me, but nothing was actually placed on me. And then it was this blanket, and then I just sort of pulled it up over me and went back to sleep.
Got it. Well, I mean, I'm not feeling anything mischievous, obviously. It feels to me like it was probably a version of you, like your higher self or a close guide or something like that.
Well, that is good. So I was afraid, then I wasn't afraid, then I was afraid again, then I was too tired to care. So it all worked out in the end, but I completely forgot that happened until we started talking. So there you go. All right, fearlessness, back to it.
Well, we didn't mean to talk about metaphysical things here, but they're real. They're part of our lives. So it's funny because I have had this experience when I was a teenager and I lived with my mom in her apartment. So not in the haunted house, but energies everywhere. And I didn't know this at the time, but I created like a thought form of myself that was living with me in that house and would sleep in bed with me. And I got so scared of it that I would sleep with my mom on her futon in the living room for months because it was just so scary. So I understand that feeling of being scared of that, even when it's your own energy.
Yeah, it was weird. Also, this is not maybe sometimes when I have trouble sleeping, this is actually something I've been like a little embarrassed to talk about on this channel. I listen to like murder podcasts. Like I'll listen to there's one I find them on YouTube, but so they're usually old TV shows, but there's one I'm currently listening to that's called Meet, Marry, Murder, and it's all about people who murder their spouses. And for some reason I find that really soothing. It's like super easy to fall asleep to. So there may have been a little bit of that residual fear. But I think about that a lot because you and I talk about like what we expose ourselves to and like, do we want to be spending time in that energy? And yet, man, it puts me right to sleep. So maybe my subconscious was a little afraid.
Yeah, I get that. Eric watches all kinds of scary things and he loves it. And it is valid part of fear. Like we were talking in the beginning, like fearlessness isn't really a thing. It's an enticing thing, but it's not realistic because there's several kinds of fear, right? There's the fear that we generate by what we surround ourselves with. There's the fear that comes from thinking that we can't do something and like going up against our own limitations, perceived limitations. There's actual real keep yourself alive fear, right? Keep yourself out of harm's way fear. There's intuitive fear where it's like, oh, I need to move locations right now because this doesn't feel safe anymore. So fear is a tool, it's a feedback that is coming from sometimes our higher selves, sometimes our brains that are overactive, sometimes we've stimulated ourselves into it by what we're watching or listening to or thinking about. So I think the kind of fear like most people are interested in is the fear that we create for ourselves, that barrier we feel so physically when we're trying to live our authentic lives. That's the fear I'm most interested in. The other kinds of fear are a-okay with me. I want to keep myself alive. I want to be in communication with my higher self, I don't want to put myself into an injurious situation. So living authentically with that fear present, that can be tricky.
Yeah, before we talk, I just want to address intuitive fear because I remember watching an Oprah, I don't know how long ago, and there was someone on there and they were talking about a book called The Gift of Fear. And it was talking about how we as human beings, but especially female human beings, are taught to ignore our fear in order to be polite. And I had something that happened to me. And luckily it wasn't too terrifying. It wasn't the serial killer. It was a flasher. But I remember having the intuitive fear when I was on a run. I saw this person. I instinctively knew to be afraid of that person. And then I logically overrode that fear in lieu of not being rude, of being polite, of not like I don't want to offend this person. And then they stepped out from between two cars and flashed me. And I was like 16 and that was terrifying. But I say that because I too want to keep myself alive. And I think as women, we have sort of been taught like, don't judge, don't offend people, right? And so it is just a good reminder that that intuitive feel, I've had it recently. I don't know how long ago it was now, but I remember I was running on a trail and I just suddenly knew I need to move. Like I need to not. And I think maybe had I not had that experience with the flasher, I would have probably talked myself like, you're fine. There's nothing here. Like there was literally nothing there. Like, but something inside of me was like, you go, you get out of here right now. And so, yeah, I love the idea of trusting intuitive fear. Ooh, and now we've got lots of comments.
I know. Yeah. So Corinne is saying that she woke up to a female spirit laying in bed next to her once. Kind energy, but spooky experience. It is. When I was really little and I experienced angels for the first time, I was really scared. So it's scary. Heather says, great topic, and that she relates to that ignore fear to be polite. Yeah, I mean, not to bring up a negative thing, but like I see a lot of memes over the last few years since the Me Too explosion of honesty coming out from women who are done being polite about things that have happened to them. And this idea that like women are like marrying and straight women, like their number one predator, like we're here with our number one predator who is men. And it's true, but it's also like we can hopefully, if we can commune with our higher self and that intuition, navigate around that as best we can. So I've been in those situations too. Once I was driving around the country in my camper van, and for the most part felt extremely safe wherever I parked and slept. But there was this one place I got there, I set up, and I just thought, this doesn't feel right. And so I moved. And then there was one time I was also hiking, and I remember I made a video about it, and Carrie was like, oh yeah, I appreciated that. Where I was hiking and I'd hiked there a million times. And then all of a sudden this one time I just thought, I need to turn around right now. And so I did. And it's just that acknowledgement that we don't need to know why. We don't need to know why. It could have been a skunk. It could have been a bear. It could have been a person. It doesn't matter. My higher self always has my back. And so I'm going to follow. I'm going to trust it.
Okay, so this is a perfect segue because we talk a lot to people about you can trust yourself. You can trust yourself. And oftentimes we do trust ourselves and we're moving daily in the direction of our dreams, or we're moving forward based on ideas that like, I can do this, or I really want this, or I'm excited about this. And then dun, 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 right? Then fear comes in. Fear of not being enough, fear of failure, fear just in like generalized anxiety. Like then fear comes in. I assume this is the kind of live fearlessly fear we're talking about. So I'll read you what my book says about it, and then let's talk about it. So because I don't think it is an accident that I came across this chapter and even underlined it this morning while Rachel was thinking about what we were going to talk about today. It says, fear is a natural emotion. It indicates that you need to be alert. It's a survival instinct. But this is what I like. Fighting or forcing away fear creates a counterforce that makes you tense and anxious and interferes with your performance. Fear is intrinsic to certain sports that have real physical risks. So then it talks about those sorts of sports, blah, blah, blah. But then it says, in any case, the fear presents the athlete with the impetus to compete, yet it also creates an obstacle to performance. What you resist will persist. Resistance is quite common among blah, 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 blah. All right, that's all we need to say about that. There's a little bit more, but this is about the different kind of fear. But what I like about the way that it talks about this is it's like, yeah, fear's gonna come up and it's okay. And I think what a lot of us law of attraction people tend to do is think, I don't want to feel fear. I don't want to feel fear. Choose my happy thought, choose my happy place. Like, but really that is actually resisting the fear, right? When you tend to do that, it will grow. And so actually, what do you think about that? What are your thoughts on that, Rachel?
Well, I think, yes, choosing happy thoughts can bolster you to be able to deal with the fear because your vibration is where you last left it. So, like you're saying, resistance is real. And if we have, like, I had a specific resistance to driving over mountains when I got my camper. Was deathly afraid of driving over mountains. I researched for hours what route I could take out of Arizona to avoid the mountains. And in doing so, I found this windy little highway with these crazy switchbacks over mountains. Like, you cannot get away from it. You have to go through it somehow. And so you get to choose, do you want to go through it in a way that is more soothing and easier, right? Like facing it head on? Or do you want to do what I did and try to like find your way out of it through action and just make it worse?
Well, what I like about it is this idea that, like, okay, I am choosing. I assume most of you guys who are watching want to do big, amazing things in your life, want to do things that you've never done before, want to have massive impact, right? Like, and I'm also assuming that not all of us are there yet. And so between where we are and where we want to go is a bit of unknown. and with that unknown sometimes comes fear, right? Fear of, like, I have to do things that I've never done before. I might have to, right? Just, I don't know how. What if I try and it doesn't work? Like, all of those things. Oh, I'm going to yawn here. Yawner of truth. So clearly that was true for someone. What I like about this is this idea that, like, that's okay. And you can know that fear is part of the journey. Like, to live fearlessly to me means live without being afraid of fear. Like, knowing fear's going to come, and it's how we choose to deal with it. And this book gives an example that made me think of the movie, what's that movie? Inside Out, that Disney movie, Inside Out. Have you seen this yet, Rachel? I feel like I ask you about it all the time. So it personifies different emotions. And I don't think it personifies fear, but I like the idea of that. Oh, it does personify fear. My daughter's in the room. I like the idea of personifying fear, right? As we're talking about the entity in the bed next to you, right? Like, personifying fear and realizing, like, fear's coming on this journey. So is optimism, so is joy, so is kindness, so is love, right? Like, all of these. And fear is just part of what's coming with us on the journey. And can we treat it as lovingly and as acceptingly and as kindly as we treat all the other parts of ourselves? I think if we can do that, that's how you learn to live fearlessly.
Yeah. And, when I have a fear come up like that, I have other resources, like being positive mostly, so that I have the energy to deal with it. Because I think if you don't have all of those other things on the journey with you, you're just going to be paralyzed and overwhelmed with fear. And I've definitely been there. But since I've been living like this more appreciatively, with all of these wonderful high vibe tools and feelings that I have, I can now see fear and calibrate it pretty quickly. Like, I don't know how to run a show. Okay, I don't need to. There will be people there who will show me what I need to do. Like, they're not going to put me in charge since I've never done it before. There will be professionals. I can hire someone to help me. I can hire, like the more you have in your arsenal, like a really good positive momentum, the easier it will be to deal with those fears. And then occasionally you'll be like, oh, I haven't been afraid in a while. What can I do next? Because I realized after a while, like when I'm really anxious, really afraid, can't sleep the night before, like something really good is on the other side of that. Some really, really good expansion and growth and living in the moment and like the reason I'm here to feel alive, you know? And so I'm sure with athletes too, you get used to that adrenaline and it becomes a source of happiness or pride or whatever. Um, Going into something, it's an energy source that you can use in life. And I think it's important to know that too. Like fear can be an exceptional thing to have around. It's not just something that's in the way.
Yeah. I was looking, as you were talking, I was looking for, I remembered as I was talking about we're going on a journey together that I was stealing that from Elizabeth Gilbert. So I was looking for that quote while you were talking, but I couldn't find it exactly. But it's the same. It's like, it's that idea that we don't need to push it away. Oh, I'm going to yawn again. I don't know. What do you guys think about this? I think living fearlessly is embracing fear, right? There's a couple of quotes that are coming to mind. So one is the Elizabeth Gilbert quote, which it basically, it's like she writes a letter to fear. It's like, dear fear, you and I were going on a road trip. Like, I accept that you are coming with me. We're going to do amazing things and you are coming with me. And I appreciate that you're here to keep me safe. I appreciate what's going to I appreciate that I can't get rid of you, basically. So you're welcome to come. You're welcome to, be here, but you sit in the back seat. You don't touch the radio. And for whatever, one thing for sure, you are not allowed to drive, right? This idea of like, yeah, fear's allowed to come. It's just not allowed to be in charge. And I really, really love that. And the other quote, which might be a little bit controversial, is this idea of feel the fear and do it anyway. So what do you guys think? I see there's something in the chat, but what do you think about that idea of feel the fear and do it anyway? What does that mean to you? I used to really regret. I used to really resist the idea of that quote, and I've come full circle on it. Where are you?
Yeah, it also, that whole like false evidence appearing real. Yeah, I get it. And that feel the fear and do it anyway was a woman, and she got really famous for that. And I think it's a good message for women because we tend to have so much fear about stepping out of our lives. And so, yeah, I don't think it's completely bad, but I mean, any quote can like take on different contexts. I think it's just really about how can I determine what is fear, like in a, going a bad direction, or what is fear going, I'm going in exactly the right direction. It's here. It's like the small little feeling of, oh, but I really want to do this. This really is for me. This is not going to go away. You know, that feeling of like things keep coming around and around and around. You really want to do it. It really feels authentic, but you're just scared. That's when I go there. That's when I feel the fear and do it anyway. But if it's like, you know what, this really isn't a match. I can tell. That's why I'm afraid. It's really not a match. That's such a small, subtle shift difference. Like, you know what I mean? And so there are times when we want to feel the fear and do it anyway. And then there are times when we want to give into the fear and realize that's not the authentic choice for me.
Yes, that's how I feel it too, is like feel the fear and do it anyway. Well, that's what I did with that flasher moment, right? I felt the fear and then I moved forward anyway, but the fear was there to protect me. The fear was like there for good reason. In that instance, I could have felt the fear and recognized, don't do it, right? Like that was, and then there's the kind of fear we're talking about, like I want to publish a book or I want to do this, which is scary, but I want to do it anyway, right? The fear, it's often talked about like the fear of what's the rosebud analogy? I am just full of cliches today.
Yeah, it's Marianne Williamson, right? Is
Yeah.
it the fear, or it's more painful to stay a tight bud than to open and bloom, something like that.
Yeah, like the rose, it's afraid to blossom. But then at some point it becomes scarier to stay small than it does. And that is the feel the fear and do it anyway moment, right? Is recognizing, just like you really wanting to drive Gertie to wherever you were headed and knowing you had like, that's a feel the fear and do it anyway kind of moment, because your dreams are bigger than your fears. And living fearlessly, I think, is about keeping those ratios in perspective, right? Like my desire, my fear is big and my desire is bigger. And my higher self has my back. I wouldn't have the desire if it wasn't for me. The desire for me comes from a higher place, and the fear comes from old stories I've been telling myself. And so recognizing, like, I am bigger than all of this fear. I am bigger than this anxiety. I'm bigger than the stories I'm telling, because I can feel like the desire is bigger than all of this. That's when I feel the fear and do it anyway. And sometimes I don't do it, and then I think about it some more, and then I don't do it. And like, it takes a while sometimes. But I know that fear is along for the journey, but I also know I'm going there and going no matter what. You're muted.
The desire will bring it back around and around and around. It won't just quit unless you do a really good job of burying it, which is not pleasant to experience. Yeah, so much. I think this really hit a chord with everybody. Corinne is saying, living fearlessly sometimes limits me, so I spin it as I'm so brave. Yeah, that's great. Guillaume is saying, for me, it's just a case of just do it. And, not to point out any kind of like masculine or feminine differences and things, but I think sometimes with men who are brought up in our society, they're told to get over it and just do it and stop being so emotional about things. But I don't, and my boyfriend really is who I'm drawing from, not you, Guillaume, but like he is very much in the fact that like shame can motivate you. Not all the time, but in certain circumstances. I totally disagree with that. I think if you're trying to force someone or yourself to do something, shaming them or just like yelling at them, just do it. It doesn't give any room for the opening of energy to happen to help you, right? Whereas like soothing, calibrating, it's okay, it'll come back around. That there's a crack in that to allow the energy to come in to help you actually get into action. So I would just say, just do it. If that works for you, that's amazing. And you probably aren't spinning it in the way that I am, but it just reminded me of my boyfriend and how he does this to himself sometimes. And it's like, there's probably an easier way. The relaxing around certain things lessens the resistance and can allow you to have a much easier time of actually doing what you want to do. I've been experiencing that lately. I've been focusing a lot more on relaxing and enjoying, and I'm actually getting more done because I'm not resisting anything or saying I need to get this done today. Just that has really shifted my workflow.
Well, and you're talking about your boyfriend and I'm talking about my husband, but like, and a lot of this is the stories, right, that we were raised with, and like, no shade, but same, like my husband will, like, I feel like he's being short-sighted. Like he'll say things like, whether it's about our children or about the kids that we coach, or like, well, sometimes they need a healthy amount of fear, but it's like fear of punishment or fear of retribution or fear of, and I feel like that's so short-sighted, because or fear of an angry reaction, right? Fear never, ever motivates, or it may motivate, but it doesn't inspire. So like, if you want a certain behavior done. Like, you just want, I don't know, kids to clean up their room, say. Like, sure, you can scare them into doing it once or twice, but it's not going to make them be the kind of people who want to clean their rooms, right? Like, and so that's where I think fear doesn't really motivate. It can be used in like the short term to get a certain result, but it's not going to get a lasting result. So I'm with you on that. But I bet a lot of us were raised that way. Like, I mean, I feel like there's a whole generation of us, a whole generation of people, of fathers who, right? Like the mothers were like, wait till your dad gets home, right? Like they thought it was their job to instill fear in order to discipline. So anyways, I don't know where I was going with that, but there it is.
Yeah, well, I'll keep up with your comments here in a sec. I just want to say we're at the half point, and the certification is a changing. So if you've been waiting to join, and if you especially want to join at the light level, which is our least expensive tuition, still get you certified and learning all the things, now is the time to join. And even if you want to be in the full, our $1,000 coupon is ending. So if you would like to save $1,000 and or join light, now is the time to do that because they're going away and we are revamping. And those of you who join at the full level will immediately get the new revamp. So save some money, still get the new stuff. Sounds like a win to me. And our certified intuitive artists are doing amazing things in the world. You can incorporate it into a career that you already have, or we can show you how to create a whole brand new one, combining the things that you love so that you love what you do. So join us, go to intuitiveart.com/certification. That will give you our coupon. It'll give you a tour of everything, all the information that you need. And you'll see Roz's lovely face on that page too. So any questions, just let me know. You can email me or book a time to chat. On the info page, there's a little link. You can book a chat, and we look forward to having you in the program.
And I just want to add to that, like, you have nothing to fear. It's the most amazing thing ever. Like, what are you afraid of? I'm using all our fear, our fear things. Yeah. But to that point, one of the best ways that Rachel helped me to make a decision is her yes/no method. I'm sure you guys have heard this before, but it was the first time anybody ever sold me something in this way. And it was so beautiful. She gave her pitch. She was like, if it's for you, great. And then she's like, if you don't know or you're feeling, because, right, so many people pitch you their thing and there's this whole fear of missing out, right? For sure. Rachel just said, hey, this deal's going away, but I promise you, even if you miss the deal and you join us later, you will not miss out. Like, it's amazing. It is worth whatever Rachel is charging. But what I wanted to say is, she told me this. She said, okay, you do the yes/no method. What does a yes feel like in your body? What does a no feel like in your body? Once you're clear on that, then she said, okay, so here's the catch. She's like, sometimes you'll get a yes immediately followed by a no. And if that's the case, that's your fear. It's that you got a yes and your brain registered that yes and freaked out. And if that's you, just relax and know that your higher self has your back. And I don't remember what program it was that you sold me, but it was like, I felt that. I understood that. I said yes to whatever you were selling, and I never looked back. It was like the best thing I ever did. But it was the first time someone had explained it to me like that. Not like, you really need this and you're going to miss out. But just like, hey, listen to yourself. Just a heads up though, if you get a yes immediately followed by a no, that's your brain trying to override your intuition. Which one do you want to listen to? So thanks for that, Rachel. It's helped me make so many different decisions.
Me too, because it happens to me where I get like super bubbly excited about something, but then I'll check in with my intuition and then I'll get a no. And I'll be like, oh, good thing I checked. Like maybe it's some variation of that will come about, but like oftentimes it's like I'm kind of flat about it. I'm intrigued. I'm curious. And then I check in and it's a big blazing yes, but there's fear, which is what kept me from being like over the top excited. So those decisions that I've made, because I often find like my intuition, my intuitive yeses in the world, like finding resonance with things, it's not over the top. I'm not an over the top person usually. And so it's more like oh, this looks interesting. Oh, let me check that out again. That's what's happening with this house I'm looking at this week. It was like, hey, that's really cool. And then it was like, wait a minute, that's really cool. And so I love the yes no method because it's so clear, you know. So Gina Maria is saying,
She wants to know a little more.
yeah. So first of all, there is a video about the difference between light, full, and extra. If you go to that intuitive art / certification, if you opt in, you'll go to our info page and it's on that page. But basically, the intuitive art method that I teach is very extensive. It's not just what's in the free class. That's a way for you to practice, for you to get an idea of like using it to get some clarity, but we teach you how to use every single color that you could ever come up with, different drawing sources, not just your higher self, mediumship readings and angels and star beings and different drawing types. They actually come out as structures on the page so that they're easier to read, like relationship, past, present, future, all kinds of amazing things, auras. And we have a lot of different things in there about how to use intuitive art in a bigger, broader way and to really master what symbols come up for you, what shapes and textures. So you become a master of the technique, the tool, and then you also learn how to do sessions with people, readings, and how to teach workshops in the light version. And then in the full version, you get a full business training, coach training so that you can coach with people, have long-term clients, learn how to do that. And also integrate you into your business and like create a service or a product or a business model that will work for you. And the full includes 2 coaching hours with me to help you do that. So that alone pays for the whole thing, just coaching with me for those 2 hours. But it's so full. We have a teaching resource center with workshops you can just grab and go and teach, and how to reach out to venues. We had the whole entire thing, and it's very extensive and it's very cool. So yeah.
And it's really, really, really well done. Rachel, you have a gift for teaching and a gift for creating teaching structures that just make sense, that not everybody who puts together courses or certifications necessarily has. Like, it is, as someone who's been a student of it, it is easy and enjoyable to follow and to implement. It's great. It's amazing.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, it is there, and we are happy to invite you in. And yeah. Okay. Back to you. There's some amazing comments here. So Gina Maria is talking about some really big fear of her mother tried to get her kids taken away, and she was terrified, and kind of goes into a little bit more of that across the comments about how she had to move across the country and felt like she might have, yeah, that's really rough, feeling like someone is kind of out to get you, like literally, and your family. So I'm wondering, like, how did you process that? You say later on that you studied oracle cards for 7 years, and yeah, that's a lot to deal with. I'm wondering if you want to put anything in there for maybe other people who are experiencing that level of trauma and fear. Add anything you want. You have another question about the certification. You work like 60 hours a week right now. Is there a time limit to full? No, you can take as long as you need, and come to the practice hours. Laura will check your homework as you need it. We'll check in on you, make sure you're still around. But yeah, take all the time you need. People do that quite often.
I did. I took like several months. I was like going for several months straight, and then like life happened, and then I came back to it and I was ready. So, and you don't skip a beat. It's the best. You talked about trauma and fear, and this Gina Maria, thank you for just being so open, right? And sharing, like, that is traumatic. And so I think it's a good thing for us to analyze. So sometimes we have irrational fears based on past traumas. And I don't know which author, I feel like several authors have talked about it this way, this idea of like something comes up and it triggers us and we are terrified. And the way, I think it was Louise Hay. And she says, the response in your body is real, right? The fear, it's real, but it's not based on something that's real. It's the same reason we can watch a scary movie and get terrified, right? Even though we know everything on the screen is fake, we're still experiencing the terror in our body. So I'm not suggesting, Gina Maria, that anything that happened with your mom wasn't real, right? But also, you moved across the country, she wasn't around the corner. And my guess is there was still lots of residual fear, right? There's still lots of stuff that comes up. And so this is what we're talking about in Living Fearlessly, like recognizing, oh, this response in my body is real, right? It is fear. What is it based on? Is it here to protect me because I shouldn't get into the elevator with a scary looking guy? Or is it like, did I activate a trauma response? Did I, right? Is it something else that's going on? And I think that's how we live fearlessly, was we live with our fear and we decide how we want to move forward. I see Rachel's reading away.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a live stream about trauma a couple months ago, and we list a lot more resources. So if anyone is dealing with that, feel free to go there. And the Crappy Childhood Fairy YouTube account is one of my favorites for educating on fear and trauma, especially in childhood. So not exactly the same situation, but I found a lot of helpful things there. And Heather is saying, your dreams are bigger than your fears. Yes. And being able to know that you don't have to have all the answers right away and can break it down into smaller pieces is big for me. Big for me too. Yeah. I don't know where I developed so much fear about certain things, but just being in the West gave me a lot of fears. Like, the mountains are so big here, and I never experienced anything like that. I was terrified to hike in them. I didn't know if I had what it took to hike in the mountains here, even though I'm a lifelong, very active hiker. The first time that I was going to go skiing here, I had to break that thing down into so many parts just because I was so afraid of like taking the bus up to the resort and getting my pass from the counter for the first time, and then finding the lift and like I had to prepare myself that every small segment of that was a success. If I went up and I got to the resort and then I came back down on the same bus, that was okay because I made it a step further. So however you experience fear, if there's something on the other side of that that you really want to do, let it be a win to get this far on that. You know what I mean? Like, there's no shame in that. I'm a pretty fearless person when it comes to a lot of other things that scare people. I receive feedback all the time like, Rachel, you're so fearless, but it's maybe just that my fearlessness is in this category and my fear is in this category, and we're swapped, right? So don't ever compare yourself to anyone else for any reason, but especially when it comes to like how you perceive fear and how you use it, because you don't know what anyone else is really going through, and it doesn't matter, right? You are perfect the way you are. And if you think about things in smaller chunks, you'll probably be able to like lighten up a little bit on certain things.
I'm loving what you said about like, well, our fears are just different, right? That's so important to remember, is like, what am I not afraid of that other people are, right? Are you not afraid of killing a spider or removing a spider, right? There's some people who will like jump out of an airplane, but are terrified of a spider, you know? And so that is such a good reminder. Like, I might be afraid of this, but I'm not afraid of that. I really like that. Thank you for that. And yes, to baby steps. I have a few people who live in my household who understand that they have irrational fears, but they will really work themselves up around something they've never done before. Like, they'll really get themselves worked up about, well, what if it's like this? What if it's like that? What if it, like, if they've never done it before, and they really want to do it, right? That's the thing. If they've never done it before, they really want to do it. And then there is like this, I mean, as the parent, it is sometimes exhausting, but this process that they go through of like, I don't know, never mind, I don't want to do it. Why did I say yes to this? Like, but what I love about it is because they're children, it is the outward expression of what a lot of us are doing as adults, right? It is like they have this outward expression of anxiety that the rest of us are just internalizing and kind of like freaking out about. But what I love about that process is taking them through very small wins and reminding them they always have choice, right? Like, sometimes it's like when you're feeling like you've already made the decision and you don't have a choice, right? Recognizing like, oh, I am choosing to do this. I could not do it, but I'm going to choose to do it anyways. Like, that really helps remove fear. And then the other thing is, when was the last time I felt this way? And how did it work out for me? And almost every instance was like, oh yeah, I was terrified. And I made this great big deal for days about this thing. And then I went and it was the best thing ever. Or I tried it and I didn't regret it. Or, right. And so calling on, it doesn't change the story, the loop in their heads, right? It's just helping them get out of it. And as adults, we have to help ourselves get out of it. So that can be helpful to make friends with your fear. Notice when it's driving, right? Like in this instance, oh, my kids are letting their fear drive. Let's put that fear in the back seat, take control of the wheel again, and then lovingly talk to fear, remind it that, hey, I get it. You can come. You just got to stay in the back seat. And every time we've gone on this journey together, you've tried to make me paranoid and it's worked out just fine.
Yeah. You know, something that I've been kind of putting off in my own life is like, I have these little impulses every now and again to do something, write something, share something, post something. And I tend to get like, it's so quick in my brain before it's like swept away that it's been easy to ignore. But now I'm in a place where I have more space to notice that. And it's funny, I think I've been wanting to make a YouTube video about like, what happens if I just let myself do all those things for an entire week, you know? Because that kind of frames it in a playful way. Like, it's an experiment. I'm figuring it out. There's a deadline on it. So we can also engage that sense of play when it comes to our own evolution, our own expression, trying things out. You know, I talked about Halloween before on my Rachel Archelaus YouTube channel about how we can use that as a way to express parts of ourselves that we're often uncomfortable expressing in other parts of the year. So just like kids do this with their dress up and they're playing all these kinds of things, we can do that too. You know, I think we were somebody yesterday, so we think we're going to be that person tomorrow, but that doesn't have to be the case. Like, we are fresh new humans in every moment. We have not yet begun to experience our wholeness. So like, be easier on yourself, as I am too, and as I make little experimental moments for myself to explore more of who I am and see how it turns out. it can be a really interesting way to live, because don't we need more spice in our lives? Like, don't we need a little more engagement and like reason to smile? And I mean, I any reason for me to be feeling aliveness, I'm into.
Well, I love the idea of an experiment because, if you guys watched us last week, you saw the books that we are reading. And one of the books that I'm reading is Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. Right. And the whole point of this book is just recognizing, like, by the time we're done with our 30s, if we are not doing little experiments or consciously, right, our like 99% of our existence is habitual thought, like it's like we're like robots, like programmed to think a certain way, be a certain way. And so the whole point of breaking the habit of being yourself is this idea that we're actually, I mean, how Rachel and I would talk about is becoming more of our true selves, right? But it is breaking habits. And instead of making habit breaking this hard thing, this like, oh, I've got to quit smoking, I'm going to cold turkey, right? If you make something an experiment, even this, where the experiment isn't breaking a habit, the experiment is picking up a new habit. The experiment is approaching things differently. That's such an easy, fun way to turn something that you want to do, that you could, if you wanted to, you could create all kind of fear around it. You could turn it into a big thing. But if you turn it into an experiment you're doing for a YouTube video, then it's light, it's easy, it's playful, and it can make a massive impact.
Yeah, and it's fun. It's fun. And so, you know what happens with fun? You get yourself into the receiving mode, and a lot more fun things flow in without any extra effort. So those multidimensional results can roll in. And, that's really the point. Like, in a very human way, I could retire. I could, hang up my hat and all the things that I'm trying to pursue. Even that phrase is a really forceful phrase. And I could, do whatever I want. And that would be seemingly easier than what I'm doing in my life. But I would feel so stifled not pursuing all the things that I want to pursue. And it would be, because I've tried it before. I went back to school over a decade ago, and I quit my job when I did that. Luckily, I was able to do that because of my partner. He wanted to give me that experience. And after a while, I actually got depressed. I got so depressed, and I was like, what's wrong with me? I'm like living this life that is so amazing. You know what I mean? But so what I'm trying to say is, we often think that like taking things off of our plate and not like being so needy in life and like wanting new experiences, we think we should be happy where we are. We should be happy like with less, but we want more. We want more of ourselves here. We want more expression. We want more knowledge. We want to learn new things. We want new friends. We're not going to be able to really stop that. And the more I meditate, the more centered I get, the more interaction with life I want. So I just think it's really interesting that, our brains will say like, just relax, be happy with what you have, just calm down. Like, and yet our spirit wants the exact opposite of that. So I always think that that's funny. There was a time when I thought I wanted to be a monk because I'm so attracted to that minimal lifestyle of just like peace and meditating and being kind and cooking food. But gosh, that just wouldn't work for me.
I love that we're ending our conversation about fear and living fearlessly with this idea of living more into the bigness of who you are. Because I'm remembering that moment in my life happened when I realized I was just over 30 and I was a stay-at-home mom with 2 little kids. And I, like, the way that I described it is I had the life I thought I wanted and I was completely unfulfilled. So what happened was I was living a life that I didn't love. The life I thought I wanted was like, if I could just be home and not have to, right? And so I got that, and I needed a minute of that, right? But then it became clear, like, this can't be all there is. And not that my children aren't amazing and being their mom isn't fulfilling in its own right. And there's a reason why, like, so many of us are triggered by that phrase, just a mom, right? It was because, like, I had some more dreams that once I had time and space away from where I had been, I realized, like, the full expression of me started to come out. And I know that's what you're describing as well, right? Like, this, I had this opportunity to pause from whatever life I had been living before. And then that I got depressed, I got whatever, because your spirit wants to be expressed. The fear of staying in the bud, right, somehow becomes, I butchered it again.
Yeah, actually, I think Heather copied it in for us. So
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Heather. And the day came when the risk to remain tight in a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom a nice knit. Okay, thank you so much for the correct attribution too. Cool.
I want to say congrats. It looks like Gina said she just got a text about painting. She's taking it as a sign. So I'm taking that as a sign that you're joining us in the Certified Intuitive Artist program. So congrats and welcome.
Welcome, yes. And this really sums it up, more experiences. And, you know, I think we tend to attract who we are, right? So, like, most of the people I'm talking to right now, you probably are in the same pathway of feeling into growth, but living the monk's life is totally in alignment for those people who are doing it and loving it. So there's no right or wrong path. It's just, I think this is the path that we're on, you know, this path of experiencing ourselves in the world. And that's really the joy of life that I've found for me. Anyway, I could go on and on about that, but we're out of time. So maybe for next time, we'll talk about aliveness and growing into yourself. But yeah, thank you all for being here so much. I really appreciate it. I love spending this time with you and Carrie. And this was a fun topic.
It was a fun time. These are my favorites when we come, like, just a vague idea of what we want to talk about. So thank you guys for being part of the conversation. Thanks, Rachel, as always, for being exceptional. And yeah, I can't wait till next week.
Yes. Okay. So intuitiveart.com/certification to get all the info or reply to an email that I've sent and we'll set up a chat. Okay. Lots and lots of love, everybody. We'll talk to you next week.
Bye, guys.